This is Cornstalks and Sports Talk, your go-to Iowa-based sports show, hosted by the one and only Elliot Clough.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer, he hears things differently. To the untrained ear, everything on his shop floor might sound fine, but he can hear gears grinding or a belt slipping. So he steps in to fix the problem at hand before it gets out of hand. And he knows Grainger's got the right product he needs to get the job done, which is music to his ears. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
What's up, Cedar Valley, and hello to the Hawkeye State. This is Cornstalks and Sports Talk, your Iowa-based sports show with me, Elliot Clough, at Elliot Clough on Twitter. Of course, we're on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com. Great stuff ahead on today's episode. Randy Peterson from the Des Moines Register. Of course, he is their Iowa State columnist. He's joining us to tell us about Omaha Biliew, newest commitment to the Cyclones and the 2023 class, along with those two other players, one from Wisconsin, one from Georgia, in that class. Very excited about that. And then Jillian Worthen, state champion and All-American wrestler from Union High School in LaPorte City, joins us to tell us about the message she shared with UNI Athletic Director David Harris, asking him to start a women's wrestling program at UNI. So both great stuff today, and really looking forward to those. But first, I want to talk a couple things UNI related before we get into those later segments here on today's episode of Cornstalks and Sports Talk. Well, actually, to bring maybe bring down the mood a little bit. There are a couple things that I want to talk about that I was actually planning on talking about today in regards to UNI, but it doesn't feel right to talk about anything else other than what happened this week in UNI athletics, and that was the passing of Lily Ernst. I did not know Lily. I don't really do a whole lot with the UNI swimming and diving team. But when somebody goes that young, it is always tragic. I talked about the Ames shooting and said that could have been me. And, we don't know anything about the details of Lily's passing. We just know that it's incredibly tragic and sad. And again, I didn't know Lily. I've interacted with a few girls on the swim team. I did when I was in school, and I've never had a bad interaction with a UNI athlete, first of all, but they're all very sweet, and from what I've seen, Lily was a girl who always had a smile on her face and brought joy to the world. And in a world that can be very dark and very grim, she was a light. And this is one of those things that makes a young man like me feel like I'm not invincible. And I don't feel like that very frequently. I've always been, for all the people that are my age or younger, you're the young kid or the young man in the office, and it makes me, I can't speak for you listening, but it makes me appreciate life more. And I've been lucky enough to not really have, I'm assuming this would come to my head right away. I don't know of a time in my life where somebody similar to my age, maybe I went to school with, college or high school for that matter, passed away. I've never run into that, and I am so lucky. And if you're not as lucky, I'm so sorry for what happened to you. And you think that when somebody you don't know passes away, it wouldn't affect you that much. But this is our community, right? This is right after what happened at the Maquoketa Caves as well. This area of the state, the Cedar Valley, has just it's experienced tragedy after tragedy, and all it's done is make this community tighter. You see the signs around the city of Cedar Falls regarding the Schmidt family, and of course now Lily, and it's just it's very it could be and it is disheartening, and it could be more than what it is. We could let these situations of sadness rip us apart and leave us broken. But it's one of the many reasons why I'm happy to have gone to school at UNI, why I'm happy to cover the Panthers as a UNI insider, and why I'm happy to have lived there as long as I have. Because if there's one thing about Cedar Falls is, it's got some of the makings of a big town. And in Cedar Falls, or rather in Iowa, it feels like a big city sometimes. I mean, not a lot of big places to live here in the Hawkeye State, but the community is so incredibly tight-knit and loving, especially when things are not going your way and when tragedy strikes. This city and the Cedar Valley collectively has some of the most fantastic people I've ever met in my life, and I'm sure incredible people I haven't met too, but it's just indicative of how loving this community is. And not to detract from what happened this week, to Lily and her family, there are no words. I can't imagine. I've seen my grandpa go through the loss of his son who was 50. Your son, you're not supposed to bury your kid. You're not. That's not how this is supposed to go. And I don't have kids of my own. I'm only 26, right? I can't imagine the heartbreak and the pain and everything that her family and her friends and her teammates and her coaches are going through right now. And all I can say is just how unbelievably tragic and sad this is. And I'm sorry. I know for a lot of us, and I mean, I've said this before, for a lot of us, sports are our escape, right? And I only get to do this show once a week, and I like to make it upbeat. I like to give you great content. I like to talk about how excited I am and the rest of the Cedar Valley is and the rest of the state is when it comes to Iowa State, UNI sports. And, we'll go off track and we'll talk a little bit of pro basketball or pro football from time to time. But I wanted to start off talking about sports. And if we have some time here on this first segment, I'll transition into it. But when something so much bigger than sports happens to a team, to a campus, to a community, I couldn't bring myself to talk about anything else first. And I don't have much more to offer other than my condolences and my greatest sympathies. And if it's your thing, I would say pray for the Ernst family, pray for Lily's friends, pray for the swim team on Northern Iowa's campus. Pray for UNI. Pray for the Cedar Valley. Because there's a lot of hurt happening right now. And when a girl who, I don't know how old she was, if she was 20 or 21, but when a girl who is that age passes away, it's one of those things that just kind of makes your chest hurt, A young woman gone too soon. So now that I think about it, I'm actually going to cut this first segment a little short and say rest in peace to Lily. You will be greatly missed by your friends and family and everyone at UNI and the Cedar Valley. So we will be right back here on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk. Randy Peterson joining us to talk a little bit about Omaha Biliew and the rest of the 2023 class for Iowa State. Don't go anywhere. This is Corn Stalks and Sports Talk on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com. And we're back for this second segment here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com with me, UNI Insider for Town Square Media, Elliot Clough at Elliot Clough on Twitter. So Iowa State just landed another massive commit to their basketball team in Omaha Biliew, Waukee State champion in 2023, five-star recruit. And on now to tell us about Biliew and the rest of the 2023 class is Randy Peterson, Iowa State columnist from the Des Moines Register. Randy, of his top three choices, Iowa State, Oregon, and the G League Ignite, Biliew chose the Cyclones. What made him decide, and did you expect him to pick the Cyclones?
First of all, thanks, Elliot, for having me on. And I think Kansas was in the mix as well. Yeah, for about maybe the last 6 or 7 months, it was leaning towards Omaha Biliew choosing Iowa State. But when the G League got involved, when he mentioned the G League Ignite, that was interesting to me because his goal is to play in the NBA as quickly as possible. But interestingly, TJ Otzelberger and his staff somehow convinced him that playing at Iowa State, or maybe his people around Omaha, whoever convinced him that playing at Iowa State would, against great competition that the Big 12 is, would also enhance his NBA potential. Iowa State's got a ton of active NBA guys now. Would enhance his NBA potential, and plus the fact that he can play close to home, and also then when he announced that he was transferring back home to Waukee, that was pretty much it. It was just a matter of waiting for the official, his official notification or his official whatever it was press conference on ESPN, which Alyssa was the only media person in the house when he did that, which is kind of cool. You might want to have her on sometime too, Elliot. But yeah, so that when the Waukee thing, that was when he said he was coming back to Waukee, that pretty much did it for me.
Talking of Alyssa Hurdle, of course, from the Des Moines Register, yeah. She's been on a few times. She does great stuff covering recruiting for the Register. And so he had a couple reasons for picking Iowa State from the articles that I saw anyway. One of them was TJ and the rest of the staff just being straight up and honest with him from the get-go, not really sucking up to him like I'm sure some recruiters did, given that he's a five-star guy. Is that becoming a common sentiment for ISU and the staff of TJ, just being straightforward and honest?
Without question. There's no question that, and TJ's always been that way. I talked to George Yang last week, maybe, I think it was last week, and TJ recruited George to come to Iowa State. And I asked George, I said, what's TJ's charisma on the recruiting trail? And he said, just like you said, he tells it like it is. They figure out a plan in which you can be successful, in which you can be successful as an Iowa State player, and in which you also can help Iowa State be successful as a team. If the coaching staff, that plan meshed with the plan that the player has, then it's a perfect fit. TJ's not going to BS anybody. When it comes to that, he's a grassroots type of recruiter. He's always been that way. He's just going to say that whether he thinks you'll play for Iowa State or whether he thinks that you might not play so much. He'll tell you what your role is and do everything he can to get you to that level, if not better.
Grassroots and keeping guys in state, which is huge for Iowa State, Iowa, some of these state programs here in the Hawkeye State, sometimes Cyclone State too. We gotta give him credit. But the way he's recruiting too, it's like you mentioned, the grassroots.
but it's also going out and getting guys in the transfer portal, like, the Iowa State history has been of going out and getting these guys. What do you think of this combination between the two? Because you can go the route of bringing these high profile recruits in and maybe developing some of them, keeping them around for a little while, but then or you can go the route of getting a bunch of transfers. And this is a combination of both. How do you think this combination of recruiting and bringing in talent will continue to mesh for the Iowa State staff?
At major programs, I don't think you'll ever see a roster full of recruits, full of kids that were recruited as high school players. The year of the age of players starting a career at one place and finishing that career at the same school 4 or 5 years later, I would say that's dwindling. I mean, I don't think we won't see as much of that going forward as we do now. So there'll always be a spot for 2 or 3 transfer portal guys, and I know that's what TJ will do. He'll keep a couple spots open for transfers. You never know what's going to happen, and I have no idea. And maybe you do. I have no idea where rosters are right now as far as COVID years. I don't. I'm like that. I throw up my hands to that, just like you did. I throw up my hands to that because I'm so, I don't care anymore. I mean, because it's some guys come back and you say, oh my gosh, how many years has this guy been here? 7 years. It's like just settles at Iowa, played 7 or 8 years at Iowa a long time ago. It seems like, and God love Jess. So I think there'll always be a marriage between the transfer portal and high school recruiting. And I say high school recruiting, and I also mean AAU recruiting, because that's where so much of that stuff is done these days.
Oh yeah. And when you can go out and get a player like Oshun Oshunniyi and then also go out and get Omaha, you're not going to say no, right?
Oshunniyi was an interesting case. I'm glad you brought that up. Oshun, I'll never say it, and let alone spell it. But he just might be Iowa State's best player next year. Yeah, when he entered the transfer portal, somebody, either he called TJ or TJ had already recruited a St. Bonaventure player, or had already got a St. Bonaventure transfer, and so this is a second one. So there was a relationship there. So between them, among them. And I didn't get this from TJ. I got this from Oshun about a month ago. He told me that they came, just like I said earlier, they came up with a plan. This kid's 6'10". He's got a 7'8" wingspan. He's the best defensive player, a rim protector in the country. The dude wanted to go to a school, play for a coach that would let him pop out and shoot a little bit, show what he can do around the perimeter. And coming into after 3 years at St. Bonaventure, he was all of 0 for 1 from 3-point range. But they talked about the fact that shooting some 3-pointers, even coming out on the around the arc and shooting. And while I haven't seen practice this summer, from what I understand from people inside practices, he's been shooting it a little bit. And yeah, I know that's in practice, and it's against Iowa. It's against your teammates. But let's also remember that was a top 5 defense last year. So that's what TJ does. But between himself and the player, they come up with a plan about how both can be successful, and they do everything they can to utilize that. And Oshun was a classic example of that.
We've got Randy Peterson on from the Des Moines Register, Iowa State columnist there, here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950, KOEL, and KOEL.com. One last thing about Biliew. He's returning to Waukee to play this year, like you mentioned, played last year at Link Academy in Missouri. What will you be watching for from him? What do you think he'll be playing more, on the ball, primary scorer for them? Because, he doesn't have Tucker DeVries as a teammate anymore.
Yeah, I think he'll be the primary scorer. I think he'll be that's a pretty good program too. Don't get me, I mean, that's a very good program. So Justin Ole, the coach there, is a very, very good coach and very experienced, and has coached at the college level, so they know what they're doing there. But yeah, I would look for Omaha to be if you're going to get a highlight reel somewhere of high school clips on Friday nights or Tuesday nights, whatever they play, Saturday nights. I think you'll probably an Iowa high school clip at least. I think you'll probably see Omaha Biliew there doing a lot of things, but he wants to expand his game, and yeah, Waukkee's not going to go out there and give him the keys to the car, the keys to the kingdom. I mean, because that's like I said, that's a good program, and Central Iowa plays pretty darn good basketball. So, I would think he'll play very well. He'll probably obviously average a double, maybe even get 8 or 9 assists also a game. So it'll be interesting to watch how he expands his game during his final season in high school.
You can watch, I actually, in the article that we have up on the KOEL website, you can watch a highlight reel from his sophomore year, and it's like, that guy looks like he should be playing D1 basketball right now. So very excited to see what he does this season. So not only Biliew, but they've got Milan, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this right, Momcilovic.
I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Jelani Hamilton, 2 4-star guys that are adding to this 2023 class. I believe it's third best in the country, according to 24/7 Sports. I think that's what I saw on Twitter. What do you know about these guys? I mean, the Biliew is one of the guys that I know the most about. What are they going to contribute to the Cyclones in their tenure?
Yeah, Milan. Let's just call him Milan.
Okay,
he's a wing guy. He'll shoot it. He'll shoot it a little bit. He's 6'8". He's a Wisconsin kid, and that's one of the things that TJ said he was going to do. He's going to recruit right here at home, essentially, meaning the contiguous states. And TJ's from Wisconsin. He's got a relationship there. Jelani Hamilton's a 6'6", more of a shooting guard. And like you said, they're both 4-star guys, and like you said, also they're number 3 in the country, according to 247. Now, whether it ends up like that, I don't know. We'll see when all the letters of intent are signed. But for now, there's so much recruiting momentum going on with Iowa State, more so than I've ever seen. Matt, Thomas, Naz, Monte, Morris, and George, they were recruited in back-to-back classes a while back, and there was pretty good hype there, but not nearly as much as what the 23 class, the hype for the 23 class, as well as now let's not forget the 22 class with Taman Lipsy being the local guy that we know the most. So this is right now the recruiting buzz with Iowa State men's basketball is off the charts.
Yeah, and that's something to say, following a 2-22 season just a couple of years ago. And the Fred Hoiberg era, when they were now expecting to be national contenders every season. How impressed are you with what TJ Otzelberger has done in this quick turnaround, not only last season, but also following it up with this just phenomenal recruiting class?
Yeah, I'm very impressed. He could have crawled into a bunker after Tyrese Hunter said that he's transferring to Texas. He could have stayed in that bunker when AJ Green, and as you know, AJ, the buzz around Iowa State for a long time was AJ's going to transfer from Northern Iowa to Iowa State. When AJ decided to give the NBA a try, I mean, that's losing 2 guys that you kind of thought you had that would be very, very that would be starters, kingpin guys for this next year's team. So instead of feeling sorry for himself, TJ went out and he kept to his principles, and he hit the jackpot in the high school jackpot on the 24 class. So I give him a lot of credit for that.
Randy, great to see you again. We appreciate you hopping on here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk. Here is Randy Peterson, Iowa State Cyclones columnist for the Des Moines Register. on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com, at Randy Pete on Twitter. Thanks so much, Randy.
My pleasure. Anytime.
All right, folks, don't go anywhere. Jillian Worthen, All-American and state champion wrestler here in the state of Iowa, is joining us up next. She's telling us a little bit about her message to David Harris, athletic director at UNI, about how she wants a women's wrestling program there in Cedar Falls. Don't go anywhere. That's coming up next right here on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com on Cornstalks and Sports Talk.
And we're back for another segment here on Cornstalks and Sports Talk on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com with me, UNI insider for Town Square Media, Elliot Clough, at Elliot Clough on Twitter. Jillian Worthen is an All-American and state champion wrestler here in Iowa, and she represents Eastern Iowa out of Union High School in LaPorte City. She loves the sport and UNI so much, she made it her goal to be the first woman to ever commit to wrestling for the Panthers. She had quite the message for UNI athletic director David Harris on Twitter a few nights ago. She's kind enough to join us this morning. Jillian, thanks so much for hopping on. This is your first radio interview.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on and hear a little bit more about your video. And so tell us, I mean, what inspired you to put it together, put it up on Twitter for the whole world to see?
Well, so we just got sanctioned this past year at state, and I'm going to be a sophomore, so I'm going to be graduating here in a couple years, and I just didn't want them to sit back and fall behind. I wanted them to get on it right as soon as possible.
So did anybody inspire you to put it together? Did you talk to your parents or maybe a coach and say, hey, do I want, or should I do this? Anything like that?
Well, I wrote the letter originally myself, and then I reached out to Allison Schwab and my coach and my dad saying if I should send it to him or anything. My dad's like, you should make a video and post it on your social media because you never know, it could blow up. And now it has like almost 20,000 views on Twitter.
That is crazy. Did you think that was going to happen when you put it up?
No.
So what were you expecting when you would put it up? Were you just kind of crossing your fingers saying, well, I hope he sees it, or what were you thinking?
Well, at first I was thinking like he's not going to see this because like I only know like Allison and Becca Roper, so I only thought like they were going to share it, and then that's it. Nothing happened, but I got like 36 or some quote tweets of people saying they need to get on it and stuff, and then he actually responded to me last night saying he would like to talk with me, which I like ran downstairs screaming last night. I was so excited.
That's awesome. Did you get to talk with him yet, David Harris?
Not yet. He did get my contact information, so I'm gonna be waiting to talk to him.
Very cool. You'll have to let us know how that turns out. We're excited for you. So what about wrestling at UNI? What about the Panthers? What about UNI makes you only want to wrestle at UNI?
Well, I know past like state champs and people from my school have gone to UNI. Like that's kind of our history. But so our club practices there, and I love their mats. I just love stepping on those mats to get better every day. And I've listened to Doug Schwab like talking interviews and stuff, and he's so smart. I feel like I could learn a lot from him and grow my wrestling with him in my corner or whoever's going to coach in my corner. And I have thought about some other colleges that have girls programs, but like I told my dad one time, I was like, I don't care if they have a girls program or not. I'm still going to wrestle there, like in the RTC or whatever. And the mats feel like home, I guess. Like that's where I have to be, and that's where I want to be. And that's like where I'm going to make jumps throughout my whole wrestling career.
So you want to be coached by Coach Schwab? Do you think they put the two teams together?
I don't know. They have some other like assistant coaches that are really smart too, like B-Rob or Pew or Roper. But I would just be happy with whoever I end up with because they're gonna have a girls program either way.
Have you been able to talk with Coach Schwab at all since you got the video up?
Not since I've got the video up, but I've talked to him about it in the past, and he's on board for girls wrestling. I was like, it was actually right after Iowa came out with their girls team. I was like, so when are you guys can have one? He's like, I want one, but like the AD and board haven't approved it yet. So I know Doug wants girls wrestling at least. So.
And that's important. He's a good guy. He's very passionate about the sport too. Any other wrestlers for the UNI program? I saw Parker Kakaisen retweeted it, and some of the other guys got some interaction with it too. Any of them reach out?
No, they haven't yet. I was actually kind of surprised that some of them retweeted it because I didn't know if they would see it either. And I'm glad that they want a women's program too. Not that like they're not selfish or anything. Sure.
Have you been able to talk with them before? I know Coach Schwab is quite a talkative guy. He's not afraid to share his thoughts on anything. But I'm a big fan of Parker and some of the other guys there. Have you talked with them at all? Maybe talked about wrestling or anything at all?
I've talked with Parker a little bit about like. I congratulated him on being an All-American and stuff, and we're talking about doing like individuals together to like wrestle and stuff and work on stuff. And they have their practices before ours, so like they would high five me and say hi and like talk with us and talk to the other kids.
So we're talking with Jillian Worthen from Union High School in LaPorte City. She's an All-American and state champion wrestler, and she wants to wrestle for the Panthers at UNI. What about wrestling that has hooked you? I know you said that you've wanted to be a wrestler at UNI for about 6 years now. How long have you been doing it? And what about the sport makes you love it so much?
This is going to be my 6th year wrestling. I'm going into it actually this year. And I actually started when I was little, but I didn't really take it seriously. Actually, I quit, and then I came back to it when I was 10. And then I started to get back into it. And then when I was 12, 13, I actually started to love it. And I guess what I love about it is working hard, and then you get to see how hard you've worked through your competition. And I also like making close bonds with the people that you meet on dual teams and stuff. And I work hard enough that I can love it, because if you're gonna wrestle, you have to love it, because if you don't love it, then wrestling's not for you.
Tell me more about that.
What I do is I work as hard as I can in the practice room, and then I just go out, have fun, win or lose. I just work as hard as I can and compete as hard as I can and just have fun, especially on dual teams. And that's why I love it.
So you get to officially represent Union High School this year for the first time, right?
Second time. I will be a sophomore.
Got it. Okay. And you won state in your first time ever doing it. Is that pretty cool?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the coolest thing about being a state champion as a freshman?
Probably the finals, because me and my opponent were both freshmen going into the finals of new weights, and so I think we were both pretty excited that we could prove it gets harder the more girls come in, because we've been doing it longer than probably maybe some of the juniors, seniors, so we have more mat time, and we'll be bringing a new level of competition, especially next year and the coming years, because there's girls I've been on dual teams with that are pretty tough.
So you've been wrestling for a while now, officially for your high school. It'll be the second year coming up. Were you just wrestling for clubs before?
Yes.
Okay.
And middle school a little bit.
Okay. So were you wrestling with the boys in middle school?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, girl. Were you kicking some butt there too?
Yeah, I only lost 2 matches my 8th grade year, and I actually wrestled a little bit JV varsity this year.
Wow, good for you. That's really cool. So despite being from Iowa, I know very little about wrestling. What do you think that expanding the UNI wrestling program to women would do for the sport?
I think it add a lot of growth, like numbers wise. Like this year we had 700 girls, and I feel like we could get more, especially with like new and more opportunities opening up. Like, cause I know, like, not just me, I just don't want to be a Panther. I actually posted like a TikTok of me wanting to be a Panther, and 2 girls commented like, "Hey, I'm waiting on that girls team and stuff." And there's others that are like saying that, "Hey, I want to be part of Iowa State," but like, I don't know if like they have the voice to, so I'm just gonna speak for everybody, especially me, because I'm very, very passionate about making a difference and helping out women's wrestling.
Very cool. Good for you. I had another question regarding wrestling at UNI. West Gym. Have you been to a duel or anything at West Gym?
Yes, I've been to West Gym. I've been and McLeod Center. I've been to West Gym a couple for duels, and then War at West Gym. I've been there.
Very cool. And did that inspire you too and say, man, I want to be in this environment?
Yeah, I love like the packed crowd and the UNI like fan community. They're so awesome. They're actually kind of like our school, like our fans.
So with the amount of support that you've gotten, and I know you said you didn't expect it, what's the coolest thing that you've had happen in the last few days? Anybody in particular reach out to you for maybe one of these national women's wrestling things, or anybody in the UNI community really inspire you and make you want to be there even more?
Well, there's been a few people that have reached out like from other states saying like they really like that I stepped up and said something, because like they want their states to do that and like grow it in their states. And I also we're thinking of ways, if they do decide to have a women's program, to help fundraise for it.
Very cool. Good for you. Also, well, I guess before we get to that, again, we're talking with Jillian Worthen from Union High School, All-American and state champion wrestler. She wants to wrestle for the Panthers when she reaches college. I've seen some features on you. Obviously, it's your Twitter name too, Monster. Tell us a little bit about where that came from. And do you like the nickname? And is it something that you like to maybe attach yourself to when you're on the mat?
Yeah, I like it. It's definitely more intimidating when people hear that. I actually got it from my dad when I was little. Like, I would destroy everything when I was little, like tear stuff apart. And so he'd call me a little monster. And so it's stuck with me through my childhood. And then when I started wrestling, it really popped out. And it's like my persona, so to speak. Like, I have shirts and stuff. And like, I guess it's my brand now. But I think it's really cool. I like it.
Yeah, might have some NIL deals coming your way with that brand. Sound like a WWE wrestler too. Maybe that's not your thing. But you just placed 7th nationally too, at a national competition. That's how you got that All-American title. Where was that competition at? Can you tell us a little bit more about what that was like, wrestling some of the best girls in the country?
Yeah. The tournament's called Fargo, or the U.S. Marine Corps Nationals. It's actually probably the toughest freestyle tournament in the country. And there's actually some really tough competition. And last year I was an 8th grader. And so I think I went 1 and 2, so I didn't get a chance to place. But there's girls that I know that are really good that also they've gotten beat out and they didn't get a chance to place. But winning my blood round match, because I actually lost my first match, and then I won 4 on the backside to place. Winning my blood round match felt really good because I lost it the year before. And so coming the next day, I was super excited. And then I had the chance to wrestle for 7th and 8th, and later that night. And then they shut off all the lights, and they had spotlights as it's pretty awesome. And then I was, I think, the third one wrestling for 7th and 8th, and I teched her in under a minute.
I don't know if you saw the article that we got up on the
Yeah.
KOEL website. We tagged that video in there. I watched it for about 5 seconds. I was like, okay, yeah, we're gonna put this in there. And if you missed it, again, you can check it out on the KOEL website. Jillian Worthen, she doesn't just want to be a UNI Panther. She has the credentials to be a UNI Panther. Jillian, we're rooting you on. And if there's anything we can do to help, we will definitely do it. We're excited to hear about your conversation with UNI Athletic Director David Harris. You'll have to tell us about that. She is Jillian Worthen from from Union High School. Not yet. From Union High School in LaPorte City, and she wants to wrestle for the Panthers. Jillian, thank you so much for hopping on. And again, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Probably one of my favorite interviews I've ever done here on Corn Stalks and Sports Talk. Jillian Worthen, All-American and state champion wrestler, joining to tell us about her video and the message that she offered to UNI Athletic Director David Harris, saying she wants a women's wrestling program in Cedar Falls. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Corn Stalks and Sports Talk. If you missed any part of today's show, you can always tune in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, the KOEL app has all of our podcasts too. And lastly, folks, I am Elliot Clough, UNI insider for Town Square Media. You can find me on Twitter. It's at Elliot Clough. This was another week's episode of Corn Stalks and Sports Talk here on AM 950 KOEL and KOEL.com.
You prepared your kids for their first steps. The first day at school, their first dance, that big test, all the wins along the way. With a College Savings Iowa 529 plan, you'll prepare them for even more. Register before May 31st for a chance to win a $1,000 contribution. Visit collegesavingsiowa.com to make the first move toward a bright future. College Savings Iowa. It's how parents get through college. Administered by the State Treasurer of Iowa.